organization. It's a movement. We're talking about unity. We're talking about unity. So we're aimed to taking down the system of race by educating, enlightening, informing, and positively debating with those who have counterviews.
It's February already, and it's time to talk about unity. I'm your co-host, Richard Jennings, and we're glad to have you here today.
Hey, I'm Carlen Charleston. I'm glad to have Richard here. Richard was caught in that H-Town traffic today, so we just got him in at the last minute, but we're ready to go now. And it's our privilege to bring you a show that was really born to talk about unity, and we will surely do that today as we introduce our special guest. And it's just, I'm so excited today about having him here. I want to welcome to our show the author of a recently released work, The Fallacy of Race. I want to welcome to our show Barrington Allen. Welcome aboard, Barrington.
Oh, so glad to be with you, Carlen. So glad to be with you, Richard. Glad you made it through the traffic and that you're alive and well. Can't stop a good man, apparently. Can't stop a good man.
Yeah, so we're really glad to have you. And I know we're going to run out of time today because we got so much to talk about. We got a little bit of time. And so I really want to get right into some of the things that we want to talk about. Now, can you start out with giving us a little of your background and what brought you to write this great book, The Fallacy of Race?
So I was in the middle of writing another book, and it's called Total Life Victory. And it's basically our marriage restoration story of my wife and me, and how I was in the music business, and that took a toll on our marriage, and it nearly dissolved about 20 years ago, but the Lord pieced us right back together. And it's essentially a story about why we must seize the kingdom of God and how to apply the kingdom of God to every area of life, namely your relationship with God, and then you take that power and strength in your relationship with God and send it straight to your family, your marriage. So while I was writing this book and getting ready to release it, in the middle of editing, George Floyd happened. And my heart sank. I've been resonating with this message about the fallacy of race, that race is a concept that does not exist. It was created to subjugate people. I've been resonating with this for about 15 to 17 years. And 17 years ago, I actually made the conscious decision, I am going to eliminate the usage of the word race in that context. That doesn't mean I'm not going to say foot race or race car or let's go see a race. No, I'm talking about specifically using the term race as it applies to humanity. And I jettisoned that usage from my vocabulary, from my lexicon 17 years ago. And then when George Floyd happened and I saw the country explode, I realized that the Lord just pressed my heart. Stop the Total Life Victory book. You need to write a book that I've dropped in your soul for 17 years, and it needs to come out now as a primer. I mean, it's not a big book. I mean, it's a primer. It'll take you about an hour to read.
But you'll need to read it twice.
I wrote it. What's that?
I said, but everybody needs to really understand what you're saying there. So it's a good read. It's very good, and people will need to do that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Carlen. And the reason why it needed to come out is because I wanted to ask a bigger question. The bigger question is, okay, why did George Floyd wind up in the street with an officer pinning him down with his knee by his neck? How did that man get there? What were the circumstances of his life that got him there? What was his father like? What was his grandfather like? What was his great-grandfather like? What were the circumstances of their life around them, the circumstances that reared them? This country, which I love, by the way, I love America. This country created a system that purposefully segregated people and created these deprived enclaves around the country whereby a perpetual life upon life generation upon generation of subjugation happened to the point where that creates a George Floyd.
Right.
It creates an Orlando Castile. It creates a Jacob Blake. Why did these guys wind up that way? Why is it that we have these neighborhoods? And the reason is 400 years old. And that reason is race theory. It has killed us. It is currently choking us. And the sad thing is, Carlen and Richard, the church, which I represent as a minister of the gospel, the church has carried this message for 400 years. And we need to stop, because we will never, ever gain unity trying to solve the devil's problem using the devil's own words. The minute we say race, it's instant division. Instantly. When you say, oh, we want reconciliation, you're defeated. You're done. Because you're using the wrong terms to deal with the problem. You tell me the last time you can solve Satan's problems, the problems he created, using his technique. It's never going to work. We have to bring light to darkness, truth and love to hatred and fear.
That's right. Yes.
And that's why I wrote the book, Fred.
Okay, very good, very good. I heard you that statement. I read that in the book also about, you can't use his language to solve this problem. Einstein made a statement like that, very similar. Einstein made the statement that said, you can't solve a problem with the same mindset that created the problem. And I think that's kind of where you're saying we've got to totally change our minds if we really want to address what you're getting at is this root cause. Yeah, we can all react to this thing that we see, but very few people spend time saying what caused it. Let's get to the root cause and let's eliminate that. So,
man, we're just so glad to have you on the program. And I just want to ask about this portion of your title that says the language that divides us. Can you give us a little bit of background what that really means?
So yeah, we were starting to get into it.
Yeah.
Race is a dividing term. It's a term that was created by Francois Bernier in his series of essays written in 1684.
Wow. This
is how far back this goes. Now, obviously, this is beyond 1619, which is when the first Africans landed on the shores of the United States of America, not called that then, but the colonies. And this term has been ascribed specifically to external appearance, that they came up with a term that actually divides humanity based upon external issues, namely hair texture, eye color, nose size, lip thickness, skin color, the main one. And none of these things actually explains who we are genetically. Right. So when we continue to use language that was created to divide, then that language continually divides us when we're trying to unify. And that's where the breakdown happens. I'm calling people who know God specifically to take up language that he uses to describe humanity. Give you a case in point, Richard.
Okay.
The Hebrew word for human in the Bible, Hebrew word for human shows up in Genesis, is Adam. It's literally pronounced Adam. In Hebrew, when you say human, you're going to say Adam, which is akin to Adam. That's exactly what it means. It means Adam. All humanity comes from Adam, which is what motivated Paul to say, from one blood created he all the ethnicities. Now, I have no problem with ethnicities. I love ethnicities. Sure. If you have a problem with ethnicities, then you're going to have a problem with wanting a croissant and wanting a taco, because you can't go to Mexico to get a croissant. The French and the Austrians make that, and they make them very well. I would question a taco bought in France, because they don't do it that well.
That's right.
You go to Mexico, you get a good taco. California, Texas, good taco, and that's ethnicity. And that's good.
You know what
I love? Ethnicity is great. Race is bad.
Sorry, I was thinking about the name of Eve. Do you know the name Eve means the mother of all living? We all come from Eve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. You talk about race theory.
We all come from these ancestral parents.
Yeah.
We all come from these same ancestral parents.
Yes.
And here's the problem that Darwin and a counterpart of Darwin, who is lesser known, his name is Agassiz, his last name Agassiz. and he taught at Harvard. Now, here's the difference between, and they were contemporaries, but they were also rivals on race theory. Darwin's theory on race, most people kind of know that, so I'm going to spend a little time on Agassiz.
Okay.
And Agassiz, not from America, but taught at Harvard and in the zoology department there. He taught polygyny. And what's polygyny? That every racial classification, and I'm using the term race in their context, not in the biblical sense, because it doesn't exist.
Right.
But he purported that every race has its own set of ancestral parents. So the Chinese, they got their own ancestral parents. The Africans, they have their own. The Europeans, well, we claim Adam and Eve. So the biblical narrative is where Europeans came from. And okay, there we go. Now that's a farce as well. And the African, the Indian, and so forth, each one of them has their own set of ancestral parents, thus the term polygyny, poly meaning many. Darwin believed in monogamy, but it was not biblical monogamy, it was secular monogamy. What's secular monogamy? It's a term that I've coined. Secular monogamy means all living things come from the same ancestral parents. Well, who are they, Darwin? Oh, that brings me to Mr. and Mrs. Amoeba. And Mr. Amoeba came out of the sludge and magically created a female counterpart. And from that, we have all living things, including a human, a humpback whale, a bug, an alligator. So man really is nothing more than an evolution in this really long stream of the ancestors of Mr. and Mrs. Amoeba. Now that's ridiculous.
That's a huge stretch of faith.
Yeah, and that's really good.
Ridiculous to believe that.
Let's do this. We're gonna come back. Hold right there, because I'm gonna want you to go over that again, so our listeners can get that, because you laid down those fundamental things where we start from, which most people call race the evolution of Darwinism or social Darwinism, because they're talking about exactly what you just said, how we took what Darwin did and we moved it into the social area, and that's how we allowed race to evolve. So we're going to take a radio break here for commercials, and you're going to come back, start right there, and go over that again for us. See, it's just like I was talking about your book. You got to read that thing 2 or 3 times so we can make sure we get it, because I think that's going to be the way that we get to the American citizens. That is, because they hear this, they've got to marinate in it, then they can understand it, and we can make some change. So awesome. We'll be right back after this. Don't push me because I'm close to the edge.
I'm trying not to lose my head.
Hey, this is the Talk About Unity show where I bring the talk.
And I bring the unity.
And together we talk about unity. Unity is what matters.
Come on.
And right now in our country, that's what we've got to do. So we do that here at Talk About Unity on the Edge Radio Network. Be with us every week.
It's going to be awesome. It always is. And I tell you what, the more we seek first to understand, then be understood, we make progress.
And we like to do that. And that's why everybody's on the brink. We love what we do at Edge Radio, because everybody's on the edge. We bring them back from the edge, and we bring the unity. So we're just glad. Edge Radio Network, every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Talk About Unity, because here at Edge Radio Network, truth still matters. Welcome to Talk About Unity, and we've got a great guest today. We've got Barrington Allen in here talking about his latest work, The Fallacy of Race, which is really a precursor to, you'd say, his greatest work. And so he was talking about something before we went to break, and he was talking about Darwin and Agassiz and the role that they played in evolving this race concept. So continue, or actually reiterate some of that again, so that listeners can hear that again, and we'll transition from there.
So Louis Agassiz was he's a zoology professor at Harvard in the 19th century, excuse me. And he believed that every people group on the planet had their own set of ancestral parents, the Asian, the African, the European, and such. And you know, if that were true, gentlemen, then according to the Bible, we would therefore need a virgin birth and Messiah on 7 different continents, if that were true. But we only have one Messiah. His name is Yeshua in Hebrew, yes. Jesus in Greek. And that individual covers everybody. His one blood covers all of us. Why? Because we all come from the same ancestral parents, Adam and Eve. Now, here's where it gets problematic with Charles Darwin, because Charles Darwin wrote the work Origin of Species, but that wasn't the full title. The full title was Preservation of Favored Races. He picked up the term that Francois Bernier used, and it then perpetuated and launched us into a foul 20th century with that term. Now, Francis Galton is the cousin of Charles Darwin. Why is that name important? Because Francis Galton is the father of eugenics, the eugenics movement. He wrote a work called Hereditary Genius, and even suggested that people of different races should not mix and thereby pollute and dilute the primary race, which is white. Now, that's how he thought. And that's social Darwinism, because he knew what his cousin had written. And he said, you know what? I'm going to borrow that construct and overlay it upon humanity and sociology. And thus was the birth of eugenics, the eugenics movement, which, of course, Margaret Sanger was a chief proponent of, with her foul work now called Planned Parenthood, initially called the Birth Control Review. All of that is based in race theory. Hitler's foul work of decimating the Jewish community in Europe, his work based on Aryan supremacy and race theory, was the underpinnings that left to the thing that we now know as the Holocaust. 6 million Jews died, and multiple other millions died in that as well. So get the book. You can go to the fallacyofrace.com to pick up the book. It's available on Amazon as well. The fallacyofrace.com. I encourage you, your dear listeners, to pick up the information and get it into the hands as many people as possible, because we've got to end this thing. And when I launched it on Facebook and you pinged me, Carlen, I was overjoyed. Lord, I'm not alone. There's another warrior in the battlefield. And now I met Richard.
Yes.
So many others. So God's doing something, and he has graciously put us at the tip of the spear. And I really enjoy taking the hill with you, friend. We're going to do this thing. Basically, what we're asking, and this is not my quote. This comes from the video you suggested to me, Carlen, and it's great. Race, the Power of Illusion, and I've ordered it. It's on its way. And I listened to a clip, and one of the guests said, by trying to tear down race and deconstruct it and actually eliminate it from society, it is the equivalent of telling people the world is not flat, it is round.
Yes.
It is round. It's a Herculean task, but I believe we can do it, gentlemen.
Yes.
We can do it.
Very good. Hey, really good points, and there's some, that one of the things that I didn't see in your book that's interesting, I think, for us to talk about, and we won't talk about it at all today because I want to get to some other issues, was the way that the European scientists and the American, I'd call it race scientists, went back and forth, so that by the time we get to Adolf Hitler, he's actually drawing upon the work of some of the American race scientists like Samuel Morton and Josiah Nott, some of these people who had been influenced previously by European scientists, or such as Johann Blumenbach, who did craniology and things like this. So this thing has been going back and forth over continents and creating this mindset that we now have with this idea of race. So yeah, it's just interesting stuff. Very enlightening just to read your work, because like you said, as a primer, it really gets people ready for the things that you're talking about now. Because I tell you what, the stuff you're saying now, when people hear that, it goes in one ear and out the other, because they're like, I have no idea what he's talking about. But after they've had time to really read your primer, or like he was saying, You can read that thing in an hour, and then you can start thinking about it, and that's what really needs to happen.
Oh my goodness,
You know,
Margaret
here's
Sanger.
here's something that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What's
go
that,
ahead.
Richard?
No, I said Margaret Sanger, the creator of Planned Parenthood. That is the greatest serial killer of all time for the African American community.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, on the fleshly level, on the human level, the argument is obviously Margaret Sanger wanted to see Negroes, because she coined the phrase the Negro Project, which is basically to go into Black churches and convince Black pastors to have their congregants, namely the women, go to her facilities, which were always built in Black neighborhoods. But the key question is, why do we have Black neighborhoods?
Ah,
Why is
there
that?
you go. There you go.
Why do we have
asking
Black
the hard
neighborhoods?
questions?
Because and the reason is because of hard, fast, hardcore segregation. And in the 20th century, we have the most divisive program, or I should say, lack of access to the program. This lack of access to the GI Bill, when Black soldiers came back from fighting for this country, and some died for the country, but those who came back, they heard of a program called the GI Bill, meaning the government was saying, oh, you soldiers, we're going to give you money for a house and money for education. All right, so let's line up right here. And soldiers started to line up, and Black soldiers started to line up. And then when they got to the counter, the guy said, not you.
Oh, my.
What do you mean not me? I fought for this country. No, not you. As a matter of fact, we're not going to give you money for the house. We're not going to give you money for education. And if you do want to live somewhere, you're going to have to live over there. And when you live over there, we're hardly going to give you loans over there. And we're hardly going to even recognize you in terms of insurance products over there. So if a realtor is approached by you and you want to live over here where we live, we're going to tell that realtor, you're going to lose your job if you bring them over here. So you turn right and go over across the tracks, and that's where you take them. And that's where they're going to be. Not only that, since you're going to be there generationally, we're going to come up with a system to keep you there. And we're going to bring you free stuff so you have no desire to get out. We're always going to give you free things and pay you to stay there. And oh, by the way, young lady, when you get pregnant, we'll give you a check. If you get married, we'll stop the check.
Oh, my God.
And when your kid hits 18, we're going to stop the check there too. So you know what to do. So I need to stay pregnant? Yeah. And if you don't want one of those babies, we got this clinic over here. You can go over there and just kind of take care of that baby if you don't want it.
So Barrington, is this stuff, all these things you're talking about?
Going on?
And so that was, okay, so we've got the historical aspect of that. How much of that impacts the fact that we still have what you say as Black communities and keeps people and perpetuate systems that keep people in those communities? How much is that the result, or how much is that causing the continued segregation we have in our society? Because surely that was historical, and of course the government's put in some things that they tried to put in some things that would stop that. And you have some people, some churches who are trying to do this work of integration and changing that whole thing. So what is the major obstacle preventing us from getting out of this racial theory, this race theory idea?
Language. It's language, Carlen. We need to speak differently. You see, when we use the language of the Bible, of God, then now we have tools to combat thinking. It all begins with words. See, Hitler didn't just, when he became chancellor in 1933 in January, he didn't just show up on the scene and say, okay, let's kill Jews. No, he started suggesting via words. He started to change the language, the mindset. That's where we need to start. This thing that we're dealing with in our country today in 2021 will not be solved instantly. We've got to help people understand and peel the layers back. We go back to the Free Start program that Lyndon B. Johnson started and just giving people stuff. I mean, he's the one who said, all right, we're going to have these N's, using the N word, vote Democrat for 200 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to get political on your program, but that's what the man did, because before that, they were Republicans. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican. His father was a Republican. And makes sense because it's the party of Lincoln. And then all of a sudden, the flip happened. The flip happened when the money started showing up from the government saying, here, vote Democrat. If you vote Democrat, this is what you're going to get. It has not worked. It's the party of slavery. It has not worked. And all of that is rooted in race theory, because it's actually an insult to say to someone, you can't help yourself. That's why we have to pay you to stay there. I'm all about giving a man a fish for a day, but coming back and teaching him how to fish. It's the worst thing you can do, is perpetually give someone fish. The best thing you can do to respect their dignity is
teach them
you're intelligent enough to know how to fish. I'll show you how I got the fish. Let's go.
Outstanding. Well, I tell you what, we don't have enough time because you got to go to another meeting. But I want you to just finish up, because I know you got another meeting to go to. We're going to have you back, though, because you should be on the show every week, basically.
I need this man in my life. Come on.
Yeah. By the way, Richard's a local pastor here as well.
You need a job? I need an associate pastor.
Oh man, I'm on assignment right
ultimately,
now.
you should be co-pastor in the church.
Yeah,
big co-pastor.
That's right.
Now, Richard, you've got services going on this Sunday, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm coming to town, actually, to Katy. I have an event at a church, Powerhouse Church. I'm going to be there 9 a.m., 10:30, 12:15. It's in Katy, Texas, and I'm going to be talking about Israel there. But please make sure Carlen gives you my information, because we need to stay connected and we can talk about some things. We might have a trip to Israel for you. So let's chat about that.
This month, I'm talking about the acceleration of transformation, and you, my sir, are exactly what we need to hear.
So, okay, your last question there, Barrington. Your last question before you get out of here. What do you hope happens with people, in people, through people, after they read The Fallacy of Race?
That they change the way they speak, which will change the way they think, which will change the way they act, and then we move into empathy. We've got to empathize. We can't just say, "Oh, poor George Floyd, he died. We have to change that." Which is understandable, but we have to empathize with the generational trauma that is within a community of people. For example, let's say we're all neighbors. 3 of us are neighbors, and there's 7 other houses as well. So 10 houses on this one block. And all of a sudden we hear of a fire at one of the 10 houses. Now, we're all good neighbors to each other. When we see the house on fire, I leave my house, you leave your house, Richard, you leave yours, and we rush to the house that's on fire. And we don't say, well, hey, my house matters too. My house matters. Well, we know your house matters. Sure. Well, right now, this house is on fire. Let's focus on it. Put the fire out there and help this person rebuild. There is a community within the United States of America whose community has been on fire since 1619. Been on fire. I'm not saying it is to the detriment of other ethnicities. Of course not. To the King of Heaven, all life matters. Yeah. But I am suggesting we should have a degree of empathy to understand, okay, how did George Floyd get here? Why is he here? Oh my goodness. The Head Start program did that. The GI Bill did that. You kidding? Margaret Sanger is based on race theory. Agassiz taught that. Are you kidding me? Charles Darwin taught that. Judge Taney in the Dred Scott decision, he thought that way. My last point here, and I want to share this with you. If we do go over time, I still have about another 5 minutes. I am thankful for America's core documents. I didn't mention this in the book, but it does beg mentioning here. Because we went all the way back to a problem. George Floyd didn't just wind up there. There was a system or a series of events that have spanned 400 years that produced where he was. When it comes to this nation's core documents, it was written by imperfect men. They were imperfect, but they wrote perfect documents. And yes, I know God was involved in it. Right. Here's why I know. And this came from just the recent research, I went, oh, when I discovered this, I went, oh, dear God, you really were involved in writing these documents through these men. Here's how. The Bill of Rights, no mention of race.
Mm-hmm.
Could it have been mentioned? Absolutely. These guys were steeped in it. It was all around them. The Declaration of Independence, written by a man who owned slaves and impregnated one of them, as we now know.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution, written by men who owned slaves. Again, not all of them. And then the Federalist Papers, primarily written by a Caribbean islander, by the way. And that's my ancestry, Caribbean islander, Alexander Hamilton. He was not born in America. He came from the Caribbean, probably spoke with an island accent, with an island link to himself. And they used to make fun of him. They used to make fun of the way he spoke because he didn't speak with an American accent. He had an island accent. He never mentioned race, and he was an abolitionist of the highest order, Alexander Hamilton. He never mentioned race. So you got four main documents, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Federalist Papers that defended the Constitution, no mention of race. Could they have done it? Yes. The mere fact that race is not mentioned in our core documents proves to me Satan wasn't involved, because if he were, you bet your bottom dollar race would have been in there, because it's his idea. God made sure that word did not show up in the core documents of our country. And it is the thing that allowed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to point to these core documents and say, America, you're not living up to your own standard. It was a perfect standard that was created by imperfect men. I don't throw out golf because Tiger Woods went astray.
Outstanding. Hey, Barrington, give them the Clubhouse information, because we're going to get on there tonight, right? Clubhouse? We doing Clubhouse?
We're doing Clubhouse 7:30 tonight. If you are on Clubhouse, look for Does Race Exist? That's the name of the club. It's going to be Does Race Exist? Richard, I'd love for you to join us as well and be one of the moderators. That would be great. Definitely. Carlen's going to be one. I'm going to be one. And the title of the Clubhouse is Does Race Exist? 400 Years of a Fallacy. Wow. Let's talk about it. So get on Clubhouse. If you're not on Clubhouse and you know someone who is, that's how you're going to have to be invited on it. It's not an open forum, but I encourage you, get on. We're going to be there for I'm going to come on an hour before just to give people a time to get in, and then we'll start the discussion promptly at 7:30. And of course, go to thefallacyofrace.com to pick up the book. And Carlen, thank you. Richard, thank you so much for having this forum and allowing this discussion. You guys are stalwart men of God, and happy to be on the battlefield with you to push back this wickedness that has plagued our country and our society for 400 years.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we present to you Barrington Allen. Outstanding. Glad to have you today. And we'll extend this conversation tonight. That's Clubhouse. And so he'll spend that extra hour he's on trying to get me locked in, because this will be my first entree into Clubhouse. And so thanks for being here.
It's
and
the
look
new
forward
hot
to
thing
continuing
for
this
social
conversation.
media.
God bless you, sir.
All right. Thank you. And we'll be right back after this.
Take care, gentlemen.
All right. We'll see you.
Are you a small business owner concerned about the downturn in the economy? Top business leaders like Mattress Mac and Warren Buffett will tell you that now is the time to promote your business more than ever. People need your services. Your business needs an edge. Learn about special advertising packages for small businesses right here on Edge Radio. Find out more, give us a call at 281-744-0446. That's 281-744-0446. Edge, because truth still matters.
And we're back with Talk About Unity, and we're without Barrington Allen now. You just missed him, and you'll have to rewind or play this thing earlier if you want to see what he said. He dropped some serious knowledge about race theory on us today, coming from his book, The Fallacy of Race. So if you haven't gone to Amazon and picked that out, pick up The Fallacy of Race by Barrington Allen. And we want to talk about some of the things that he talked about here. One of the quotes that he had in his book talked about the fact that God creates this diversity, and he celebrated it. But then man looked at that diversity and we segregate it because of it. I mean, that's really deep. And he talked to that extensively about all these things that have been put in place to create this segregated society. How do we get out of this? I mean, because, and we talked about how, what is the key to get us out of this? And that's why we have Talk About Unity, because we believe the answer is unity. But how do we make that practical and everyday? What do you think, Richard?
I think the word, and this word hit me on the way in this morning, the word solidarity, the reality of solidarity, which means what one does affects all. And I was at an intersection. Traffic was horrible this morning. And there was this homeless, I'm going to use race only because I have to explain what I'm saying.
Well, a darker skinned guy.
Well, no, this guy, the white guy.
A lighter skinned guy.
He's walking across the street. He's dressed, he's a hot mess, walking across the road, heading over towards Jack in the Box. And then there was a darker skinned guy in the drive-thru of Jack in the Box getting a breakfast sandwich or whatever. And he's just minding his business, nice, clean car. And then all of a sudden, the guy from the light-skinned guy starts walking towards the guy's car at the drive-thru, and he peels off out of there because he doesn't want this guy. He didn't know what this guy wants, so just messing with him or going to ask him for money while he's held hostage in the drive-thru. And he pulls around the corner, and the guy's about to walk over there to his car. And I thought, this is like a flip-flop. It's like if I didn't put labels on who was in the car, by you saying light skin or dark skin, most people would assume that those roles would have been flipped. And as I was looking at this man, my question always is, where's his mom and dad? Regardless of the color of skin, where's his mom and dad? What happened to him as a child? Does he have a family? What in his life? What went on like that? And then there was the thought, what one does affects all. We have to get beyond the color of skin and realize this is humanity.
So it sounds like you're saying the same thing that Barrington said earlier. He was talking about the questions that we ask, and are those questions getting to the root cause? And so I think what we're saying is race is superficial.
It is.
It's so superficial. And it not only is just superficial in the fact that we use it, but it's superficial in the sense that it prevents us from getting to the root cause, from asking the real questions that would determine how we relate to each other, And I think that's so important, because he made the point too about language. How does language factor into this? Because I talk so much about how dialogue and how we don't hear each other. And I think that's a lot of what's happening in our country now, is that we simply don't hear each other. I say something and immediately that label gets stuck on me. He's conservative, he's a liberal, he's a Republican, he's a Democrat, he's black or he's white. That label gets stuck, and it prevents us from any further dialogue, any meaningful dialogue. And I think that's kind of where we got to go. We got to begin hearing each other, talking with each other, because dialogue is two-way.
I think there's some terms, some new terms that have come out in this last 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. Because I heard this term for the very first time at Sandra Bland's funeral. Your brother was with me there, and she used the term white privilege. I'd never heard that term before. And then I was asking, well, what does that even mean? And there was like a chuckle. I think we need to get rid of white privilege, and we just need to grab a hold of the term privilege. There's a lot of people that live a privileged, sheltered, protected environment. And
well, if you did that, though, you would be getting rid of, as Barrington says, race theory. And you could do, and see, people are scared that if you do that, then it won't cater specifically to them, because we don't see them then as human beings, and so they can't fit in this larger group. But I think what you're saying is correct, is that when we care about people, then we can use terms as they're defined without fitting them into race theory. And that's a thing. So race theory keeps us, and we don't understand how race theory keeps us from really seeing people as human, and which is what we need.
Well, I just want to say, and running late and trying to get things done. There's a lady. I had to do something this morning. She cuts in front of me, and I was obviously headed to the checkout counter, and I thought there are Karens. There are Karens in every race, creed, color on the planet. People label the Karen as the semi-affluent white lady, right? No,
another label,
no label, right? The Karens are every shade of.
Hey,
the
I know
spectrum.
some very nice Karens. I want to tell you, I know some nice Karens, and those Karens do not fit in one particular skin tone. I know some lovely Karens.
Yeah.
I got a sister-in-law Karen.
Just
I know
entitled,
some friends
right?
Karen.
Oh,
One of my best friends, Karen's going to say, "I'm glad you stood up for me,"
there you go.
and because
There you go.
Karen is very nice. I know a nice Karen. So very good. All right, and so let's talk. All right, any want to talk about Barrington? Also, let me push that again. Clubhouse tonight. I haven't been on Clubhouse. Clubhouse tonight. We're going to open up, and then we're going to just talk about this because I think, man, and we probably could be on there for hours, but of course, people have to go to bed. But we're going to really open up and really talk about some of these things because I think it's so important that people understand some of the basic premises behind race ideology.
Yep.
And I think most Americans don't understand because we grow up in it. It's kind of like the fish who grows up in the ocean. They don't know that they're in water. Right. They just really don't know. We don't know in America that we're swimming in race culture. We're swimming in race ideology, and we really don't belong in it, and we got to get out of it. So we're going to be on Clubhouse tonight. What was the name of the place? He said it's.
He's at Powerhouse.
Race. Okay. What race does not exist or something?
I think that's.
I can't remember. So you look us up. I don't know if you can look him up by name, Barrington Allen, but he's going to have a room open where we can start talking about this, and you can listen and find out more about this. Okay. So if we don't have anything else to talk about there, we can go to some of these other issues. You got anything else you want to talk about?
The thing is, when he mentioned George Floyd, that is constantly a hot button for me because immediately they're running to. The white officers, and not all of them were, but I mean the white officer and then the dark-skinned man, George Floyd, who was being oppressed, and obviously the police were not trained correctly. But why don't they look at the bigger picture of that as to like what he was saying, Mr. Allen was saying, is that what happened before that moment? Do you know George Floyd?
How did he get there?
He had more fentanyl in his system. Then that would have been more than enough to kill an elephant. But they didn't spot the medical need, the medical emergency that was occurring. It was just another person that was being yanked that committed the same type of crime and just make those assumptions.
Right. And so people would say, well, yeah. So once again, race gets in the way. If they had seen that this guy had other issues, maybe they would have ministered to those other issues rather than just putting the knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds or whatever. Yeah. So maybe that would be the answer I think that people would give for that. And so that's why it's so important that we do away with race ideology so that we can deal with the real issues that are there. Because
we need to begin when these things crop up. We need to do a social autopsy of these things.
We got to remember that. That's a good one. Social autopsy.
Like how, social autopsies. When, where, who was involved, who did not have some breaks, some speed bumps to keep these things from happening again.
Let's do social autopsies. Hey, we're going to take a commercial break, our last break before we come back. We're going to change channels here, and we're going to talk about some of the things that are happening out in our culture right now. And before we go to break, everybody got to check out my shirt today.
Yep.
Okay, let me stand up so you can see my shirt.
Come on.
All right. In honor of the getting rid of race theory, not black, not white, not yellow, red, or brown.
Yeah.
Human. All right, that's my pitch. We're gonna go to commercial break and we'll be back as we change channels here on Talk About Unity.
We work our whole lives to support our families. With one accident or illness, it can all be gone in an instant. Now there's a smart, affordable way to protect your family. Go to findhealthbenefits.com and discover low-cost life insurance for as little as $2 per month. Add to that a tax-deferred annuity that can help you protect your assets and grow your money for retirement. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com. or call 877-235-6094. A critical illness can strike without warning and wipe out your life savings. In fact, it's the #1 reason for bankruptcy. Find Health Benefits offers an affordable solution. Get up to $50,000 if you get cancer, stroke, or a heart attack, giving you the peace of mind to focus on getting better while the plan helps you to pay your bills and medical expenses. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. 66% of seniors spend more time shopping for cable TV than Medicare plans. Most say because it's just too confusing. Laws change every year. The wrong plan could cost you thousands and prevent you from seeing the doctors you want. Introducing FindHealthBenefits.com. Save time, save money, see specialists without referrals. Go to FindHealthBenefits.com or call 877-235-6094 for this informative brochure.
Society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
And we're back, and boy, this is a packed day of information and excitement and dialogue, and we got more of that happening tonight on Clubhouse. So go out there, look up Barrington Allen and see the Clubhouse that he's hosting. I'll be in that room, and we're going to be talking about some of these things that we talked about today: race theory and race ideology, what that means, and what we got to do about it in this country to make some changes. Now we're going to switch channels. Let's talk about some of this stuff that's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've got a certain view, and we'll talk about that shortly, about what's going on with our former president, Donald Trump, and impeachment. Okay, so as you know, he had a little debacle here with his lawyers. His whole lawyer team quit on him.
He didn't need them.
Yeah. Well, evidently. Yeah. What's he going to defend himself? Of course, he got some more lawyers. But what do you think about the fact that, let's go back all the way back to when we talk about this particular issue. Why do you think Donald Trump had to fire so many people? Why? I mean, what's that mentality that says, I fire people, I fire people, I fire people?
He is a fast-moving CEO, and part of his nature, his culture, and why he's been so successful is if the people that he hires for important positions, if they are not extreme top producers, he gets rid of them and puts somebody else in.
But I think about James Mattis, though, Marine, his defense, Secretary of Defense.
He wasn't aligned with his thinking. That's what I mean. And when I say top producing, I'm not saying those results. I'm saying in regards to what he thinks needs to be accomplished.
So then, is he one of those people who believes that it's my way or the highway? I think you don't think just like me. Then so it's almost like he boils himself down to. And this is what I think is the worst in when a leader thinks that I have all the answers, and anybody who disagrees with me, you got to go because I know better than you, which he said several times about generals. And he said, I know better than the generals. And I was like,
I think part of it, there's probably a large part of that's how he thinks, but he also surrounded himself with a cloud of people, a cloud, whatever you want to call it, of people that had extreme moral fortitude. I mean, it was from every cultural background.
Yeah, but you mean the ones he fired?
No.
Did they stay?
Like 100? Yeah, they're still with him. There's like 100 pastors. I'm friends with many of them.
I'm talking about his in his cabinet.
His cabinet. Yeah. I mean, some of them stayed.
He didn't fire anybody on his prayer team, huh?
No, he didn't fire. I mean, if he did, I didn't hear about it. No, but so he had people in his ear speaking to him, loving. But I just think I don't know why I wasn't invited. Probably because I would have said, "Come on, we stopped calling people names in elementary school. We don't need to do all that." But the bottom line is, he is not in office anymore.
So what do you think is going to happen? Impeachment.
Okay, so. The reason why he doesn't need lawyers, and I said that, it's not because he's going to defend himself. Mm-hmm. It's because they don't have the numbers in the Senate to impeach him. So why pay this money for lawyers when it's not going to go anywhere? Anyway, you're not going to get the numbers enough to where they're going to impeach him. You can't, and the whole conversation is, you can't impeach.
Do you think it was impeachable? Do you think what they're charging him with was in fact solid and verified, something they should be charging with? And do you think that he would be, if, for instance, if they had the numbers party-wise, would there be an impeachment?
I think it would be a huge argument, and I think you're going to find a lot of people in the Democratic Party really pushing away from the table of impeachment based on what they call insurrection. They're going to be pushing back on that because it was Rand Paul brought it up. He said, okay, if we're going to go down this road, and this is the standard of insurrection and getting people kicked out of office, then Maxine, with what she said about if you see those Trump supporters, right, those people in his party, then go to the restaurant, mess them up, right? So that's an impeachable offense.
And that's a good segue because now there's this issue with Marjorie Greene, who is a Republican who just came into Congress, and they want to expel her from there, but then they realized they couldn't do that because they don't have the numbers, and so they said politically we can only do censure. So they're trying to censure her and remove her from some committees because of things she said before she was in office.
Right.
And so that's interesting because when you bring that up. Here's my issue is that you've got people saying bad things really on both sides. It sounds like Donald Trump, on both sides. You got people saying bad things. And are we doing the same thing with those people? And I don't think that we are. And I think that they really need to get back to work. I think Congress needs to get to work, and show us some sense of unity. That would be me, the unity guy, saying this. But they need to show us some unity and get back to work.
What we're seeing is the can of cancel culture opened now in the political arena. Like all of a sudden we're going to start, you said this 10 years ago, or we saw this picture.
Yeah, but they're not doing it with Maxine Waters. They're not doing it with other people.
But if they go down this road of impeaching Donald Trump after he's out of office, and when they don't have the numbers, but if they did have the numbers, then you're going to have people in the House and the Senate really pushing the cancel culture from their perspective of getting people that said or did things, even while in office, that they have on tape. They're going to try to get them out. And I think the people that did that, all of a sudden, you're going to see they won't have the numbers anymore. They're going to back away from the table because they know what they did was wrong. What the Republican Party said, well, we're above that. We're not going to do that. But if they do this to Trump and other Republicans, well, then the Democrats are going to have a tough payday.
They'll have their day eventually.
Yeah, I just don't. We need to get away from that and get to the people's business.
Yeah, really do. And so hopefully we'll get there. Time has passed by quickly here on Talk About Unity, so we're going to close out the show. But before we do, then I've got to have Richard's pick for the Super Bowl coming up this week.
I am going with the GOAT.
We got Tampa Bay and the Chiefs.
The greatest of all time, Tom Brady with Tampa Bay. I just really like him. Although I like the up and coming Billy Goat.
He can't beat Mahomes. You just can't beat Mahomes.
Patrick is amazing.
The only thing, what he needs? He needs to get behind in the game so we can show his greatness.
He needs Gronk on his team.
He just needs to get. He's got Kelsey.
You're not kidding.
My goodness, he got Kelsey, Tyreek Hill.
That's the Flash, bro.
I just think too. Hey, so I mean, who would bet? I understand people talking about Brady. But betting against Patrick Mahomes,
10 Super Bowls.
It's just
10.
I think you got the two best teams, two best quarterbacks.
Yes, by far.
And so it's going to be. I saw a meme and it had a big goat and a small goat, and it said, right. "Here's our Super Bowl." One coming up.
The changing of the guard.
Changing of the guard. So that's good. Hey, all right. Well, we thank you all for tuning in and talk about unity today. And Vince, our producer, he's telling us, hey, we're over time, so we got to get going out here. Hey, remember, join us again tonight at Clubhouse, and join us again next week here on Talk About Unity. Rich and I will be here, and Rich will be on time next week.
Oh, I sure will.
We'll see you. We're out.